Okay, so I decided that I should try to make a video while I have a little bit of time before I start traveling again. And while I actually have like a little bit of privacy to even record anything. So, what was I about to say? Oh yeah, this video is gonna fall under the message to abuse kids category. And that's what it's gonna be about pretty much. Some do's and don'ts that I learned throughout the years of being in an abuse situation and the Cash for Kids system. So, one, this is something that somebody told me, and I'm probably, wait a minute, what was I about to say? Oh, yeah, I probably mentioned this a lot throughout the year since I was told this. So, I would say I've probably been saying this since, I don't know, the part 2 channel, which I don't even know how long the little 2 people who watch my videos have been here. But for those who don't know, I mention this kind of often, but I try not to. This channel was a part of, wait a minute, 7 channels. This was the first one though. I made this before the part 1 channel. But this channel was a part of 6 other channels, which were called the abuse evidence channels. And it was just abuse evidence videos pretty much of things that happened to me and others actually. And it was stuff that happened in the Cash for Kids system, but also stuff that just happened in other parts of my situation that weren't really related to the Cash for Kids system. But I used to be known on YouTube and plenty of other sites as the kid who had, well, not used to be known, I still am known as that, but the kid who had or has 2,000 abuse evidence videos and couldn't get any help. And the reason for that is because there is no help. There is no system put in place to help. There's a Cash for Kids system that's put in place to make money off of your abuse situation and further traumatize and brainwash you and guilt trip you. And then that's pretty much it. But anyway, to get to the point, when I was in support groups and was showing and talking about the abuse evidence videos with other people, this one person told me when I was in this Jim Crow self-confined placement that my mom got me put in, she told me, never argue with people that have the ability to ruin your life. And of course, I don't curse or any of that stuff, so arguing doesn't even mean like you're cursing them out or something. It could be just really a conversation, because people, certain types of abusive people with certain spirits, they take conversations even as like you arguing or fighting with them. So what this pretty much means is that when they're lying on you, or they're like, not even just that, when they're, what do they call it, narcissist crazy making behavior. When a Jezebelic person is doing their crazy making behavior stuff where they like just start some chaotic situation out of nowhere and they're arguing with you about pieces of paper and tying your shoes and arguing with you about why your ponytail is crooked, stuff like that. That weird stuff that they argue with you about and will start whole fights over and attack you for. Literally, physically attack you for. The best thing you could do is gray rock / stonewall, which means don't even really respond and try to avoid them as much as possible. Although, of course, in a placement like the self-confined Jim Crow thing that I was in, you can't really avoid people when you're locked in a room that's like the size of a bathroom with them all day. But just try to be as cordial as possible and maybe even agree with them. And I know that, like, you may think, well, if I agree with them, then they're going to be like, See, you're admitting that you did this, this, and that you're a terrible person and deserve this abuse. But the thing is, they're gonna do that anyway. That's something that I learned. Like when I was somewhere from 4 to 6 years old, I made up this saying, and it was pretty much, regardless of what I do or don't do, I'm in trouble anyway. There's honestly this clip that I want to edit in if I'm able to, from this soft white underbelly interview from this 17-year-old runaway. It was this boy. He honestly looked kind of older than that, but he was 17. He was pretty much breaking down, crying throughout the whole video. I'm gonna put it in the description. And at one point, he was like, "I'm gonna get my A beat if I do my homework, and I'm gonna get my A beat if I don't do my homework. So why would I do my homework?" And it's kind of like that, somewhat. So yeah, regardless of what you do or don't do in situations like this, you're gonna get tortured anyway. So you just gotta try whatever may make the situation less horrific. So yeah. And then when I was in the self-confined placement, there was this one boy in there, and when the staff were giving him their stupid little, crazy little manipulative quote-unquote talks, he would just be like, "Yeah, you're right. You're right." Do something like that. Don't sound like you have an attitude or sound sarcastic while doing it, though. And people with these types of spirits, anything about you that seems not how they want it to be, they're gonna get mad. So you want to really try to control your tone and your eye contact. Some of them want eye contact. Some of them will curse you out if you give them eye contact, which goes into the whole, regardless of what I do or don't do, I'm in trouble anyway. So these situations are really hard to navigate, but of course, this depends on what type of abuser you even have in the first place. So you may not have a Jezebelic abuser, so you may not have to really worry about a lot of this stuff. 2. Nobody is going to save you. This includes Cash for Kids system organizations which you may already be a victim to, such as CPS or juvenile justice. CPS, just like all the other Cash for Kids system organizations and staff, they're there to side with their abusers, and they're only really there to take people away who aren't being abused. But either way, you don't want to be in the system. People who are in the system say that being on the streets is better. And at the end of the day, if you're already going through different Cash for Kids system placement abuse, there's no reason for you to even want to go into CPS because you're already in the Cash for Kids system. If you've been in a TTI, like a ranch, or if you've been in the juvenile justice system, or if you've been in the mental health system, part of the Cash for Kids system, which the mental health system is tied into every branch of the Cash for Kids system, you've pretty much already been in CPS custody. And they all are trafficking organizations in and of themselves, but you can also get into higher level trafficking from them. So yeah, nobody's going to save you, and there is no system put in place to help. 3. Mandated reporters are not your friends, which I go over this in a really recent video where where the news at least were saying that these boys who were obviously kicked out wanted to sleep out in the snow on the porch. And then they started trying to say that the boys were just bad, the usual bad black boy criminal stuff. So yeah, these people are not your friends. And if you live somewhere where the everyday citizens are mandated reporters, they're not your friends either, but definitely the Cash for Kids system staff are not your friends. Mandated reporters along with CPS and the police are Cash for Kids system staff. This means they get paid to help abuse you. They are not only flying monkeys and enablers, but they are evil perpetrators who get a kick out of abusing too. They will help gaslight and manipulate you about everything happening to you because you did something so terribly wrong that you deserve to be essayed, drugged, tortured, locked up, sleep deprived, not allowed to shower, not allowed to eat, etc., etc. They may even tell you that you're being They may even tell you that you being used as a lab rat, a label lab rat, such as the bad, crazy, and slow labels, which the mental labels all fall under being quote unquote bad, crazy, slow, or retarded. Lab rat, label lab rat, 'cause I messed up. Torture experiment is treatment because you're bad, crazy, slow / retarded, inferior / not normal, weird, poor / broke, etc. In reality, this is not happening. This is not even just, wait a minute. This is happening not even just because they make money off of abuse, but because they can. They're doing it because they can do it, pretty much. Just like this dude said to me once, and I have a video about this. When the mother is psychotic, they treat her children because that's how power works. If you didn't have abusive parents or no parents, you never know or believe these systems really exist or are legal. Because, of course, people think that laws matter when the laws are made by abusers anyway, which is why abusers don't go to jail or get charged. 4. Child abuse is an agenda, not a coincidence, on a spiritual and physical level. And the spiritual level pretty much goes into how, like, let's say you're anointed or prophetic, or even if you're not, to be honest, but everybody does have something that they're supposed to do pretty much in life, so, but yeah. Let's say you're anointed or prophetic and you have a large star. What's going to happen is that I'm trying to figure out how to explain this in a short way that doesn't take 35 minutes. So pretty much everything has to happen in the spiritual realm before the physical. That's why, like, if you believe in Yahweh, there's the term on earth as it is in heaven. If you're in the cult or pagan or whatever, or some religion, the term is going to be as above, so below. And pretty much both of those things mean that for the good and the bad side of the spiritual realm, things have to happen there first to happen in the physical realm, which will then reflect into the natural / physical realm. So if you ever seen that pyramid thing with it's like sometimes they look like mirrors and then they have like the colors or stuff like that. Pretty much those two dimensions, well, it's more than two, but those two realms, what happens there reflects in it. The reflection merges together and creates the natural realm. So you're anointed / prophetic and you have a large star, and on the evil or demonic side, the as above so below, what they're going to do is they're going to say, let's make sure this person gets molested, or they I don't know, their dad dies or joins a gang or goes to jail or something like that happens to them. And then that'll mess you up and that'll be used to try to throw you off your path and keep you from meeting your purpose in life and reaching your full potential, because you end up messed up and traumatized. And yeah, so that's a summary of how that cycle works. And I'm gonna have a video kind of about that. But I know what Tiffany Buckner says is that trauma is the devil's training ground. And honestly, I like that saying, but what I always say is that child abuse is an agenda, not a coincidence, pretty much. So there's that summary of the spiritual side. Hopefully that made sense. I mean, of course, the people who don't know or believe this stuff, it's not going to make sense anyway, but these videos are for those who know enough to understand this somewhat. So, because it helps create a world of messed up, turned out people who will go along with any agenda that is pushed, since their ability to think for themselves has been taken away. There's a lot that goes into this. Also, depending on your abuse situation, you were a social experiment or sacrifice, a blood or innocent sacrifice, which doesn't necessarily have to unalive you. SA is a blood sacrifice ritual. I don't even know if I could say that much on this app, but regardless of this, if sodomy, I don't know if I could say this, buck breaking or Virgo Vasal are involved, which of course, anything sexual, even if it's not like abuse involved, is going to be a ritual anyway. But that's another video, and I talk about that pretty often, which also plays into the global agenda of worsening the world. Because of course, when there's enough sacrifices and different things like that, pretty much it helps break the veil. To make a long story short, that's why right now as like the veil is thinning more and things are getting worse in the world, there's the need for more sacrifices and more kidnappings and all that stuff. So yeah, I just had to explain that last sentence for just in case it didn't make any sense. 5. Abuse is a demonic ritual which causes brain damage and soul fractures. Oh my gosh, I messed that up. Soul fractures / holes / voids, which can let in spirits / demons. So a door would be a way that demons can get in that is done by you on purpose or maybe even out of ignorance, but it's still something that you did. Maybe you didn't know that it was like a bad thing to do, but you did it. Windows are how spirits / demons can get in ways that either aren't your fault or, well, yeah, that aren't your fault pretty much. Maybe a couple other ways, but yeah. And then also, it was another thing I meant to say. Oh yeah, so also, abuse is illegal in the realm of the spirit. So it's something that's not supposed to happen anyway, but because the world is tainted, it happens. So it's actually illegal in the realm of the spirit. The spirits attached to the voids and emotions. These splits cause multiple personalities and other issues / mental illness / trauma, because mental illness is trauma symptoms. And mental illness, real mental illness, that doesn't come from like sugar or a gut microbiome imbalance. Those are things that I honestly wouldn't consider real mental illness. It's just things that mimic mental illness. So like diabetes, and I believe even a certain type of schizophrenia can be like, wait a minute, I messed this up. Dementia, and I believe a certain type of schizophrenia are both diabetes. Of course, dementia is already being labeled as a type of diabetes, a diabetes of the brain. I believe that there's a certain type of schizophrenia that could be like that. Mold illness psychosis, so like mycotoxin psychosis, I think that's the more formal term for it. That would obviously mimic mental illness. Parasites, microbiome imbalances, bad diet, things like that. Like an example is how when your blood sugar is low, which happens to me pretty often, it could seem like you're having dissociation, but really your blood sugar is low and your organs and stuff aren't getting enough energy to where you can't really function, and honestly you could end up passing out or something. But you could end up getting told that like you just have DPDR or something. So those are things that I would consider fake mental illness or things that mimic mental illness. Real mental illness, where the brain is actually affected, with the brain and the spirit, because your spirit, if I'm saying this right, your spirit is your mind, will, and emotions. Anything that actually affects that is what I would consider real mental illness. And all that is trauma and trauma symptoms. Or maybe you're just doing things that you shouldn't be doing and it's messing you up. Like, I don't know, being like butt naked on the computer all night, because that'll mess you up too. But honestly, even when you do fall into sexual addictions, that usually even stems from like trauma, like SA or neglect anyway. Or even physical abuse. Physical abuse, that alone can make somebody like fall into what people are calling BDSM, because when you can't you can't handle the abuse, so you have to convince yourself that you like it, at least subconsciously. So people that fall into like the BDSM stuff, they don't even always have to get sexually abused for that. They just have to get quote unquote whoopings, or people call discipline. And then you wonder why your kid's walking around saying they're a furry with a choker on and handcuffs. But anyway, let me keep going. Where am I? All mental illnesses. Wait, I missed something. There's something I'm supposed to put in here that I didn't. I was supposed to also say all mental illness is different forms of double-mindedness. You may know that the term schizophrenia, or the label schizophrenia, means split minds, but actually all mental illness is different forms of double-mindedness or split minds. So anyway, let me read this now. All mental illnesses are off branches of CPTSD and PTSD, whichever one you get depends on the person slash spirit slash temperance. So temperance is like just how a person is created in general, and just like how they are and how their personality is. That can make them either. I'm trying to think of an example. So let's say a person who isn't inherently like mean, I guess. And of course, this depends on the level of BPD they even have, but because there's a certain level of BPD where you pretty much are a narcissist, just like with schizophrenia. But anyway, a person who isn't inherently mean may get BPD. Covert, not covert. What do they call it? Not internal. I forgot what it's called. Oh yeah, quiet BPD. They may get quiet BPD where instead of hurting other people, they hurt themselves, which of course has the same effects because saying everything is happening because I'm not good enough is just as victim complex. He will make you just as bitter narcissistic as saying everything is somebody else's fault, but that's another video. But you don't want to hurt other people, so you hurt yourself. So somebody who rather not hurt other people and rather hurt themselves instead would probably end up developing BPD, which comes from severe emotional neglect and not being able to have an attachment to your parents, either one. But somebody who, just because of how they are, just how they were created, rather like fight people and beat people up whenever they're upset about something, they're more likely to like become a sociopath. And maybe not saying that all sociopaths run around beating people up, but with how temperance works, they're more likely to develop sociopathy or become a narcissist or something, because instead of saying don't hurt other people, hurt myself, they say um it's a dog eat dog world and you gotta hurt other people and not get hurt, things like that. Hopefully that was a good enough example of temperance. Now I'm trying to remember where I am. Dang, wait a minute. The type of trauma and level of soul fractures, the amount of wisdom revelation you have, what you do with your trauma, emotions, hurt, and pain. So like if you do drugs, if you don't do drugs, if you go into sexual addiction, or if you go into like work addiction or cleaning addiction, and whether you develop a victim complex and become bitter or not. Because of course, once you like develop a victim complex and you become bitter, that's when you can become what I like to call a schizonarch, because people with the Jezebel spirit or a high ranking Jezebel spirit or like high level quote unquote narcissist, they tend to be just about the stereotypical, what people would call the stereotypical paranoid schizophrenic. Like I had videos when I was doing the abuse evidence videos of different situations of my relatives, my abusive relatives, like pretty much just being paranoid, like how my mom's boyfriend, who was like a grandiose narc or whatever you would call it, if we were driving down the highway, he would feel like people were following us. Or I never mentioned this, I don't think, but there's a situation where my older enabler sister, we were in the store, and she got mad at me and my siblings and wanted to leave because she felt like people were looking at us because, quote unquote, we were acting retarded and being embarrassing. Even though, of course, we weren't doing anything, but also nobody was looking at us. She just felt like people were looking at us because of how messed up she was from all the trauma and becoming a schizonarch, as I like to call it. And then, of course, there's a certain spectrum of quote unquote schizophrenia where the person pretty much is just a narcissist who's really grandiose and thinks that like everything is about them. I seen a video of a lady who was like, the police were outside because of her. The bus wasn't moving fast enough because they wanted to do something to her. So yeah. Then I missed something. Then as far as a certain level of revelation or wisdom thing, so an example for this, or at least the only example I can really think of right now, is like So one person will go through sexual trauma and they'll become like a prostitute or something. But another person won't become a prostitute because they already have a level of revelation or wisdom that they're worth more than that, and they already know how prostitution turns out and how you end up and how much it affects you. So somebody that doesn't have the level of revelation about their self-worth could end up becoming a prostitute, or they'll be on Instagram butt naked, walking around doing the feminine thug persona, walking around with their butt out, or they're a girl walking around with their butt out, or whatever, stuff like that. If you have a certain level of revelation or wisdom, you may not fall into certain traps because of trauma that other people do. Hopefully that was a good enough example for that. What all have I read so far? I think I read all of that. 6. You are not sick or bad or crazy for not wanting to be abused and neglected. And there's a video I have, in a recent video, where I'm actually reading the comment that somebody had left me in a situation where I was being smear campaigned all over the internet by relatives. And long story I'm not going to go into, but I agree with a good couple of the things that she said. Some of it was like but the overall point of what she was saying was it was pretty good advice. So I'm going to put that video in the description. And I think it's titled Someone's Response to My Relative Smear Campaigning Me All Over the Internet. And she also mentioned how like she was in a cult and she was being essayed, and of course she was being made to feel like she was just crazy and bad and she just needed to shut up about it, and it was her fault anyway because she wasn't a virgin anymore, and all the usual bullcrap in cults. So anyway, your reality is real, and it is not good / normal what happened to you. Even though abuse is really normalized, it's not good. In fact, what I really should say, and actually I've been saying this since like 14, just because something is normal doesn't mean it's right or good. So keep that in mind. 7. Abuse victims usually say, I wish somebody cared. Unless they have really bad cognitive dissonance and really believe that people didn't know what was going on, they say, I wish somebody cared, not I wish somebody knew. This is because when you're getting abused, everyone around you knows. I discovered this at 14 and started spreading awareness to this reality then. Because people around me, neighbors, family friends being my dad's multiple girlfriends, and even other people I knew throughout the years. I had people like coming to me saying, you're definitely being abused, when I was like 9, 10. So yeah, anywho. Family, friends, and mandated reporters started telling me how obvious my situation was, but that they wouldn't help because it was none of their business. I should edit in that screenshot of that text message. And other sayings like that. The neighbors know, the school knows, the police know, CPS know, etc., etc. People will just pretend not to believe you and agree with your abusers that you're bad, crazy bad and crazy, or retarded / slow, because they don't care and others get paid to help abuse, and some are quote unquote too scared to help. This all goes into why your situation will be better if you don't tell people or beg for help. And I know people are going to be like, well, you should tell people. But the thing is, if somebody isn't willing to actually help you get a court case and fight to adopt you themselves, they aren't really willing to try to help you. And there's honestly not much else they really could do, because the laws, of course, are there to, they're put in place to side with abusers and keep victims in bad situations. So there are ways to help, but a lot of people aren't going to want to do the other things that they could do to help you because, quote unquote, it's illegal and I don't want to go to jail, and what if I get, the different stupid stuff that people say as excuses to not help. And it's like, if the abusers aren't going to jail for kicking out an 8-year-old and the police know the 8-year-old is sleeping outside, then what makes you think that you're really going to go to jail for letting an 8-year-old spend the night at your house, or for giving them a blanket, or for giving them something to eat, or for at least like letting them sleep somewhere near your house so you know that like nothing happens? And this is actually an example based off of a real life situation, not with me but with somebody else. But yeah, people are always talking about how they don't want to go to jail. Kind of like something that I used to have a video about. I don't even remember which channel this was on. Maybe like I think the part one channel, where one of my dad's multiple girlfriends' kids had found out from his mom and a couple other people about the whole situation with the munch house and the cash for kids system abuse, and me being drugged, and the drugs like messing up my health and putting me in comas and stuff. And at one point he was like 13, by the way, 13, 14. No, he was younger than 14. He was like 13. And he had the nerve to curse me out and threaten to fight me because pretty much he felt like I was putting his mom at risk by talking about how she talks about how the situation is messed up, but she won't really do anything to help. And he was like, don't involve my mom when your parents trying to kill you because I don't want her in jail. So yeah, things like that. Anywho, let me keep going. Once I figure out where I was even at. Oh yeah, so uh don't tell people. Don't. Cuz they already know anyway. And when you tell people, they get mad, which is going to be the point of this paragraph once I start reading it. But like I'm kind of shaky because my blood sugar keeps dropping, and yeah, I can't really see either. But I'm trying to work on my health. But yeah, so that's why I sound sick and shaky, because I am. So better if you don't. Okay, hold up. I think I said all of that already. Because once you start begging the selfish, empathy liking people and flying monkeys around you for help, they get mad at you. Some will disappear and ghost you because your situation is too much for them and scares them. Others will go back and tell your abuser, such as CPS or family friends. Some will just tell you to shut up about it and be grateful because they won't and can't help you and don't care. Overall, once you start begging for help, the people you beg will start to get mad at you and scared and will curse you out and give you betrayal trauma. What I mentioned in the first paragraph is also why you shouldn't get caught up in thinking you need evidence of the abuser to prove you're sane, because everyone around you already knows and there is no system put in place to help you. This is coming from someone who's known on YouTube and other sites as the kid who had 2,000 videos of abuse evidence. Oh, I didn't put the evidence part in there, but of abuse, and still couldn't get help because there is no help. Just the cash cow torture systems and people that want to take advantage of you. Because the people that don't necessarily work for any of these systems, but the people that will come up or pop up and claim that they want to help you so bad, but really their help revolves around sexual abuse. Those people that care so much and tell you about how hot you are and how you're like an adorable kid, stuff like that help. And then what I call let me help you lunatics, which I have a couple of videos about what I call let me help you lunatics and why I made up that term. And that term really fits the people who have that let me help you lunatic complex. Trying to remember where I was at. Victim blame you and use toxic positivity. So toxic positivity, the people that will be like, well, you're being locked in the closet and strangled, but you're still pretty, so you'll be okay because you're still pretty. Or what's the other toxic positivity thing that people say? At least you have sink water to drink. At least you have a pair of shoes. Be happy. At least your house is nice and your fridge can make ice. What's something else someone said to me? Some of those things were said, some of those are just examples. You're beautiful, keep smiling. Learn to handle your own emotions, because you can only control yourself, and you can't control the people around you. Or what you get told in the Cash for Kids system: when you're being sexually abused, count to 10 and learn to control yourself and stop being out of control. I don't even know if that's toxic positivity, to be honest, but that's just something else that people say. So 8, don't waste your time begging for friendships or romantic relationships. They won't save you. 9 out of 10 will make your situation worse. If you're anointed or prophetic, you will tend to attract the Jezebel spirit. If you have a disturbed family system and are traumatized, you will tend to attract other people with the same spirits as your abusers. If you're in a covenant / marriage to those spirits in the spirit realm, you're also going to attract people with those spirits. So, like, if you have a covenant with the Jezebel spirit, you're going to attract Jezebelic people, things like that. And one of the ways to not attract these types of people is to get out of idolatry too. So stop idolizing friends and boyfriends and girlfriends and having limerence with people that don't even like you, and harassing people and falling into manic depressions because somebody didn't answer the phone for you, and you're trying to figure out whether they hate you and whether you did something wrong, and being codependent and buying people Birkenstocks that don't even like you, and all that stuff is idolatry. That'll make you keep falling into these types of relationships. Abusive people love codependent people. If you're constantly looking for love in all the wrong places and begging for love and kissing people's butt and stalking people and stalking people's pages, having limerence with anybody. I was about to say emotionally unavailable people, but you should never have limerence with anybody. If you have limerence and favorite persons, you have really bad idolatry. This is symptoms of BPD, and the reason you have it is because of your attachment issues that you have, because you don't have any safe people to attach to, because you couldn't do that with your parents, either one of them, because they were both abusive or both nowhere to be found. And like I've been saying since 14, if you have codependency, you are manipulative. Codependency is unintentional manipulation. Your therapist isn't going to tell you that because, one, they get paid. Okay, wait a minute. When you're under 18, they get paid to help victim blame you and make you feel like everything is your fault and you're just bad, crazy, and slow. When you're 18 plus, unless like your abusers are still in the mix and are controlling your quote unquote therapy, they give you a victim complex and make you feel like nothing's ever your fault and everybody just hates you and things like that. But if you're codependent, you are manipulative. If you have limerence, you're manipulative. If you have favorite persons, you're manipulative. Your favorite persons don't like you. Yeah, let me keep going. Okay, dang, where was I? Oh yeah, other thing. Focus on loving and caring about yourself. Because honestly, nobody else is going to do that for you, especially if you can't do it for yourself. Because if you don't like yourself, you're always going to be putting yourself in these stupid little situations with these fake friends that only respond to your messages when their dog dies, their mom tries to unalive themselves, and all their other friends leave them. And I know that probably sounds weirdly specific because it is. Yeah, so don't do that. Don't beg for friends. Don't beg for anything, to be honest. Where am I? Or even you'll attract people with the same voids and spirits as yourself. Complete isolation isn't good, but sometimes you need to be in a season of solitude while you go through self-deliverance. Focus on yourself, escape your situation, and fix your next situation, and work on healing. 9. The best thing you can do. Okay, hold up. That's none of that is right there. I'm seeing stuff. The best thing to do is back out of your abuse situation slowly and quietly. Now, this is something you especially have to do depending on what type of abuse situation you're in. But of course, as the world becomes more Jezebelic, it's rare to really find an abuser that's just like a regular I know it sounds weird, but a regular abuser, it's like all the abusers have to like use manipulation and emotional witchcraft. They have to gaslight you. That's how abuse is these days. It's like whatever happened to somebody that, I don't know, just was like a jerk. It's like abuse is like serious these days. It's like serious stuff. Pretty much like cults and things like that. It's not even just the old school. Johnny was a jerk and he was cheating on me and he was immature and he spent all the money on buying a motorcycle and getting a grill and he said he was gonna wash the dishes but he didn't. It's not even like that anymore. It's like serious situations going on these days. So yeah, anyway, if you're in an abuse situation where like they're labeling you as bipolar, schizophrenic, as they always do, retarded, different things like that, situations like that, all you really can do is back away slowly and quietly. Don't let anybody know you're being abused. Don't tell CPS, because if you tell CPS is going to tell everybody that you know you're being abused and that you have abuse evidence, and then everything's going to go downhill from there. Then your abusers are going to get more hyper vigilant. They're going to start putting up cameras in the kitchen if there weren't already cameras in the kitchen. They're going to start putting locks on the doors, locks on the windows. They're going to if you weren't already not allowed to have a phone, you're not going to be allowed to have a phone. And things like that are going to start happening. Pretty much, don't let them know that you know anything. Play dumb. Honestly, they're calling you retarded. Play retarded. Act like you don't know anything and make your plan to get out of there. You don't know anything. You don't know how to talk. You don't know how to read. You can barely walk. You don't know how to count. You don't know anything. What you do know is kept secretly in your head, your plan, how you're going to get money to get out, how you're going to leave. And also, you don't have to do the wait till 18 thing. Due to the way the laws are set up by the chomos that make the laws and try to keep you in your abuse situation, and if you try to leave your abuse situation, they charge you and throw you in jail, and then they take you through more essay and drugging. They make it hard to get out of an abuse situation under 18, but it's possible. And of course, depending on what your situation is, getting out can be harder than others. Like, nobody believed I would get out. I still, like, kind of go into a derealization every so often and kind of amazement that I actually got out. Thank God I did get out. But nobody believed I would get out of my situation, but I still did. Like, I remember I even had got caught by I guess a relative. I guess they were a relative or a family friend or something like that, but they had actually seen me with my two bags trying to go out the back door. And I was like breaking down. I had a video of it too, back on the evidence channels, because I had like a lot of secret phones because I had to have a lot of secret phones. But I was like breaking down kind of because I was really scared after I got caught and I didn't think I was going to be able to get out. My mom kept calling the police, but the police didn't care. They just kept leaving. And so I was breaking down and I was crying and stuff, and I was like fighting my mom's boyfriend over my bags, and he was laughing about the situation. My sister, my older and older sister who we all live with, she was mad and she was taking my bags from me, and like I was fighting her over the bags. And of course, as I've shown before and talked about a lot throughout the years, different things that happened to me did really mess my health up. So I'm like really sick because of iatrogenic effects, although I'm getting better. But due to that, I've been like severely underweight and I'm really small, and I've been really small for years, and I can't really build muscle or like gain any body fat. So I'm also really weak, and I was especially really weak then. So they had barricaded the door with the couch, and the couch was honestly really light, but due to my health, I couldn't move the couch anyway. So, all that stuff had happened, and I was just trying to calm myself down. And I was like, I can't freak out because, you know, when you're in abuse situations, what really happens is that you have two options. You either unalive yourself, or you let them unalive you, or you run away. Those are the options that you're at when you're ready to run away or need to run away, whatever in the world. And so, pretty much, where was I? What was I saying? Because I'm starting to drift off into the low blood sugar. Hold up. Wait a minute. Oh, yeah, so I was like, I don't have to jump to extremes because eventually the situation is going to calm down as much as it can calm down in a situation where there's constant chaos. Like, I remember people would be like, your mom's boyfriend sounds like a whistling tea kettle. Or people would say things like, why do your parents talk in all caps? But yeah, so anywho, I was like, I just gotta calm down because eventually the situation will subside and I could just try to run away again if I don't get to today. I was like, just don't jump to extremes. And this is what I was saying to myself in my head while I was crying and like shaking and freaking out. So I was like, I just gotta calm down because I'm gonna get out regardless. I'm gonna leave regardless, so I don't have to flip out. I don't have to like fight them back. Because of course, when you fight back and you defend yourself, while you're getting like bags thrown at your face and stuff, you're the bad guy with how the laws are set up. So don't even do any of that. Just get beat up for a few minutes and get cursed out, like they tell you in the Cash for Kids system, because it's all your fault, quote unquote. But no, really, just like try to ignore that, or at least I could do that because I kind of like stopped being able to feel pain at one point when I was like 8. So that's what I do. You calm down and then you wait. You wait a little while, and then eventually my older neighbor sister and my mom started cursing out my other scapegoat sister because she got in. I don't even know what she was saying. It was in the video. I don't even know what she was talking about, but she started saying something about how they need to like be nicer to me and a whole bunch of other stuff. And then she was saying some other stuff, and I don't really know because I was in my own head. And so eventually, my mom and my older neighbor sister were like, you know what, both of you just get out. And of course, after they kick you out, they call the police again anyway. But the police don't care, especially because of my ethnicity. They didn't care. So I was never actually being looked for, but due to how the police are and how like if you're homeless under 18, then you're the criminal. You still have to watch out for police anyway and avoid them because they may ask you for ID. And people already think I'm like 11, 10, 12 years old because of how I look. So it makes things worse for me. If I actually looked my age, I wouldn't even really have to worry about avoiding cops like that. But yeah, so then I got out. I'm having mucus build up a little bit, but I got out. They gave me back my bags. They broke one of my phones, and it wasn't even a phone I was going to use. It was one I was actually going to try to sell to somebody eventually. They broke that, or at least my sister did. I don't know what she did to it, but after she gave it back to me, it never worked again. But I already had like 3, 4 other ones, so it didn't matter. And I had one that was on that I had been paying the bill for because I get burner phones, as you should do in these types of situations, and I would take out people's trash for money secretly whenever I was able to leave the house when nobody was around. So yeah, anywho, I did that. I got my bags back. I left because they told me to just go ahead and leave. My older neighbor sister, not my older neighbor sister, my older scapegoat sister, she didn't leave. I mean, for one, they messed her up and gave her DID anyway, so there wasn't really anywhere for her to go or anything that she could really do for herself because they messed her up so bad after a while through the gaslighting. But I hid my bags in another neighborhood. I hid my bags in another neighborhood in a breezeway of another neighborhood. And then I walked to the store to get some snacks. I had already secretly made a sandwich. And then I walked to the store, I got some snacks that I was going to eat on my road trip. I went to the nearest state. I didn't have to do that, but oh yeah, because I was supposed to be helping somebody who was being trafficked, but that didn't really work out. Another story, but I went to a nearby state, and I was able to get there within like a few hours. In situations like this, or really anytime you leave an abuse situation, you want to get as far away as possible, as quick as possible. You want to be out of the state by the time the missing persons report is even put out. Because for one, the missing persons report, they dox you and they have your address in them. The point of the missing persons report that law enforcement won't admit, it's actually put out to let traffickers know where you are, what area you're in, and where they could look for you at. Which is another reason why you want to be out of there really quick. And plus, like, where I live wasn't a place to be homeless at anyway. You want to be somewhere where, like, there's woods, there's soup kitchens, there's homeless showers. You could forage if you need to. You have a place to set up a tent. But yeah, some of that's for another video. This is already pretty long, so